1 minute ago, 50 Cent named names. He had proof. He just broke hip-hop's biggest secret. Viewer discretion advised. The following is a dramatized reconstruction based on reported testimony, alleged events, and public commentary. This narrative is intended for educational and entertainment purposes. Before the courtroom filled, the buzz in the hallways was electric. The gallery was already packed, reporters, whispering, legal assistants typing frantically. It wasn't just another high-profile trial. This was the Diddy case. And today's witness, 50 Cent. Not through a live stream, not a meme. This was real, under oath. He stepped into the witness box with that signature walk, confident, deliberate, and unreadable. The judge looked up. The jury leaned forward. Even Diddy didn't lift his eyes at first. But everyone could feel it. The energy in the room shifted. For years, Curtis, 50 Cent Jackson, had danced on the edge of controversy. He cracked jokes, posted memes, said things others were too scared to whisper. People brushed him off. That's just 50 being 50, they said, until now. State your name for the record, the prosecutor asked. Curtis James Jackson III, he replied, no smirk, just steel. The prosecution wasted no time. You've made several public statements about Mr. Combs over the years. Why? 50 shifted slightly. Because nobody else would, because I was there, because I saw too much and heard even more. The room froze. This wasn't gossip. This wasn't blog talk. This was sworn testimony in a federal courtroom. Let's talk about the Drink Champs interview, the prosecutor said. A clip began playing. Diddy on screen leaning into rapper Fabulous. We never party together, Fab. Never. I keep telling you we gotta party together. Fab laughed nervously, looked away. The jury watched the clip with clinical detachment. But the moment it ended, 50 added quietly, that wasn't a joke, that was fear. I was there. I saw Fab shrink like a kid getting called out. He paused. That's Puff's thing. Pressure. Charm at first, then pressure. And if you resist, it gets worse. 50 described an after-party at a Miami hotel. Industry folks, alcohol, flowing, people getting loose. Puff pulling people into VIP rooms. I told Fab, if you don't want to be here, dip now. And he did. Out the back. Didn't say goodbye, just vanished. The prosecution shifted gears. You said you brought a list today. 50 reached into his jacket, pulled out a folded sheet. Yeah, this is part of it. Names, situations, stuff people been too scared to say. Diddy didn't flinch, but his lawyers leaned in. Let's start with the most unexpected one, the prosecutor said. 50 sighed. Justin Bieber. A ripple went through the courtroom. Yeah, 50 continued. People still see him as that bowl-cut kid, but back then, when Puff had him around, it felt wrong, real wrong. He described a clip. Diddy on video saying, I don't got custody of him, but he's mine for 48 hours. Smiling, laughing, but 50's tone was grave. That's not mentorship, he said. Ain't nobody mentoring at 2 a.m. in Miami. And that boy was 15. Did you witness anything inappropriate? The prosecutor asked. 50 shook his head. Not directly, but people in his circle told me. Things he was shown, stuff he saw, stuff that changed him. He paused. Ever wonder why Bieber cut ties? Why he never speaks Diddy's name? That ain't coincidence. Murmurs in the gallery. One juror covered her mouth. Let's talk about YK Osiris, the prosecutor continued. 50 nodded. Young talent, one hit. Then Puff came around. Next thing, Osiris is flying, private living, large but spiraling. I told people, Puff don't take you to Jamaica for nothing. He mentioned the Instagram meltdown, Osiris crying, saying nobody helps. That's what it looks like when someone's been used and tossed. 50 added, it's always the same. Puff finds them young, promises the world, then pulls the strings. The judge cleared her throat. Please stick to what you personally saw or were told by direct sources. 50 nodded. Yes, Your Honor. I was warned too. Don't party after the party. Don't take gifts. And if Puff says, let's chill upstairs, don't. He looked at the jury. That's when it gets dark. Diddy remained expressionless. The prosecution asked about Gene Deal, Diddy's former bodyguard. Gene told me about a night with Ja Rule. Puff bought half the adult store, took Ja upstairs, told Gene to guard the door. Ja came out, head poked out, said, "Yo, you might not want to come in here." A gasp escaped from the gallery. The judge tapped her gavel lightly. "We're here to establish patterns," the prosecutor said. "Would you say that was part of a larger one?" 50 didn't blink. "Absolutely," he looked right at the jury. "This ain't about what grown men do behind closed doors. It's about control, about coercion, about what one man does with power when nobody's watching." The courtroom was silent. He glanced at Diddy. "I told younger artists, don't go to those parties. If you do, keep your phone, stay with your crew, and never drink anything you didn't pour yourself." The prosecutor asked, "Did anyone listen?" 50 gave a sad smile. "Some did, some didn't. The ones who didn't, they don't talk much anymore. Not because they forgot, but because they're scared." "Scared of who?" 50 didn't hesitate. Puff, his lawyers, his money. The judge called a recess. As 50 stepped down, he looked straight ahead. Not at Diddy, not at the gallery, straight ahead. Outside cameras waited. But inside that courtroom, something had shifted. Not just because of what 50 said, but how he said it. When court resumed, something had shifted. The kind of shift you don't see, but feel. The room was heavier now. Not because of what had been said, but because of what everyone realized hadn't yet been said. 50 Cent walked back to the stand like a man with a purpose. There was no smile, no posturing, just gravity. The prosecutor didn't waste time. "Mr. Jackson, you referenced earlier that your list includes individuals who were present at events but chose to remain silent. Can we discuss that?" 50 nodded. "Yeah. See, not everyone got caught up in the mess. Some people were smart, they stayed close enough to see it, far enough to avoid it. But even they never said a word. Why? Because silence pays well in this business." He scanned the room, but it costs even more. "Let's talk about Kevin Hart," the prosecutor said. A murmur passed through the gallery. 50 nodded again, slower this time. That one stung. "Kevin's the funny guy, right? Always the one cracking jokes. But I was at that party. He wasn't laughing. He took a breath. It was a mansion. Malibu. Night before the Oscars. Puff's annual unofficial pre-party. Invitations only. Phones gone at the door. Security like it was the Pentagon. Kevin came with a friend, a producer I knew. They weren't there long. Puff spotted them quick. Pulled Kevin aside. Friendly at first. Laughs, hugs, drinks. But the moment they walked out of sight, that vibe changed. You ever see someone reappear and they're suddenly stiff, like they just saw something they shouldn't? He leaned forward. "That was Kevin. Did he say anything to you?" "Later, yeah. Just said, 'Never again.' I didn't ask. I didn't have to." The gallery was quiet. Reporters scribbled faster now. The prosecutor flipped a page. Next name on the list, Bow Wow. 50 let out a short breath through his nose. Yeah, that kid had been around the industry since he was basically in diapers. You'd think he'd seen it all, but even Bow got caught off guard. He continued. Puff invited him to a creative retreat in Turks and Caicos. Said it was about vision planning. Bow called me before he left. I told him go for the sun, not the night. The courtroom chuckled lightly. 50 didn't. When he came back, he wasn't himself. Wouldn't say what happened, but his manager told me. Bo got into an argument with Puff on the last night. Something about refusing to stay in the main house. After that, Puff stopped returning his calls. Career shift fast. Like a switch flipped. The prosecutor moved quickly. Let's discuss Trey songs. 50 nodded solemnly. That one got quiet fast. Puff brought Trey around during one of those late summer parties in the Hamptons, one of those where NDAs are thicker than the wine list. He shifted slightly. I heard from 2 stylists and 1 driver Trey got asked to model something private. He refused. Puff wasn't used to hearing no like that. What happened after Trey disappeared for 2 days? His label said he was on break. Nah, he was hiding. The judge cleared her throat but didn't interrupt. This isn't about who did what behind closed doors, 50 added. It's about the pattern, the lure, the trap, and how easy it is to walk into when someone like Puff tells you it's just a party. The prosecutor held up the sheet 50 had brought in. This is your list. That's the short version. How many names? Over 20. Maybe more. Depends how many finally speak. And have you reached out to any of them? Some reached out to me. Were they afraid? He paused. No, they were terrified. Silence again. The prosecutor turned the page. Let's talk about the rooms. 50 sat up straighter. Yeah, the rooms. He let that hang. You see, Puff don't throw parties. He throws mazes. You walk in thinking it's music, drinks, celebrities. But there's always a second location, a quieter room, a hallway with guards, a suite upstairs. That's where it shifts. Shifts how you go from music to manipulation, from laughter to silence. And when you come back down, you don't talk. You just exist. The prosecutor looked at the jury. Did you ever see what happened in those rooms? No, but I saw who went in, and I saw who didn't come back the same. Anyone you'd name today, 50 stared at Diddy. Not yet. Some of them are still recovering. Some are still under his payroll, but they'll come, one by one. The judge called for a 10-minute recess. 50 stepped down. As he walked past Diddy, he didn't look at him, but the air between them crackled like static. Outside, the media frenzy exploded. Inside, the walls of silence were starting to shake. This wasn't just about secrets anymore. This was about structure, about systems, and 50. He was just getting started. The courtroom returned from recess still hushed. Gone were the whispers and side glances, now replaced by the kind of stillness reserved for funerals or earthquakes. Everyone understood this wasn't a celebrity spat anymore. It was a crack forming in the foundations of an entire empire. 50 Cent took the stand once more. He didn't speak right away. He looked down at his hands, then slowly up at the jury. You know what scares me, he finally said, how easy it is to be erased. The prosecutor didn't interject. They knew this wasn't about procedure anymore. This was confession, revelation. Every name on that list, 50 said, holding up the same folded paper, is someone who either saw something, felt something, or survived something. But nobody talks. You know why A pause? Because Puff makes sure they don't. He leaned in slightly. There's this myth in the industry that silence is loyalty, that not speaking is professionalism. But that's not what this is. This is fear. Weaponized fear. The prosecutor returned to the timeline. You mentioned an event in 2017, a Grammy after-party at a penthouse in New York. What happened there? 50 nodded. It was one of those elite invite-only things. No plus ones unless Puff approved. I was there. So were 5 other artists, 2 label execs, and a handful of new faces. He exhaled. Halfway through, Puff pulled this new guy aside. Just signed, barely legal. Said he wanted to mentor him. Took him into a back room. When he came out, his face was white. Looked like he'd seen a ghost. Wouldn't talk to anyone. Left 20 minutes later. Did you follow up? I tried. He vanished. Off socials. Dropped from the label 6 months later. Story was he wasn't ready for the pressure. But the truth, another pause. He saw something he shouldn't have. The prosecutor nodded slowly. Was this a recurring thing every time, every party? Puff builds the scene, then filters who gets to see the next level. And that next level, that's where the real game begins. Define real game, control, submission. Puff doesn't just want access, he wants ownership. Mental, emotional, sometimes more. He gets in people's heads. makes them feel like they owe him, like he made them. And when you believe that you'll do anything to keep the light on you. A juror shifted uncomfortable. The prosecutor moved on. Let's discuss a name you added in handwritten ink, Fabulous. Why wasn't he on the printed list? 50 hesitated. Because I wasn't sure if he'd ever want this out. The judge reminded him to stick to first-hand experiences. I was there, 50 said. Drink champs. That weird interaction that wasn't staged. That was Puff trying to flip the vibe live. Fab was caught off guard. You could see it. He laughed, but his eyes, fear. He looked down. And after that I pulled Fab aside, told him, you ever feel cornered again, call me. He just nodded, didn't say a word. Did he ever call? Never. But the next party he didn't show. I think he got the message. The prosecutor turned another page. You also named Kid Cootie. What happened there? That one's different, 50 said. Cootie wasn't scared, he was mad. Explain. Puff tried to get in his circle. Invited him to multiple events. Cootie declined. Then one day Cootie's car exploded outside his home. No one was hurt. Police called it a wiring issue. The gallery gasped. But Cootie's team thought otherwise. Said Puff had been pushing him hard that week. Phone calls, messages. When Cootie blocked him, things escalated. Next day, boom. Was Puff ever formally connected to the explosion? No. But ask anyone in the industry, they'll tell you it didn't feel random. The judge tapped her pen against the bench. Mr. Jackson, please refrain from speculation. Yes, Your Honor. The prosecutor kept going. You noted that Puff's team often confiscated phones at these gatherings. Is that accurate? Standard protocol, 50 replied. Soon as you walk in, they take your phone. Say it's for privacy, but it's not. It's so there's no record, no proof, no trail. What happens if someone refuses, they don't get in? Or worse, they get in but are handled. Handled how? Intimidated. Watched. Pushed to drink more. Isolated. The prosecutor flipped to the final section. You also mentioned multiple staff members, assistants, drivers, security who witnessed these incidents. Have any agreed to testify? Not yet, but they're watching. They're waiting to see if this moment is real, if speaking now means protection or punishment. The room fell into another silence, not empty but full. Full of names not yet spoken, stories not yet told, lives paused in limbo. 50 broke the silence himself. Look, I didn't come here to burn bridges. I came to break locks. People need to know this ain't just a rumor. It's structure, it's a ritual, and it's protected by power. The prosecutor nodded once more. Thank you. No further questions. The judge recessed for the day. As 50 stepped down again, a young producer in the gallery locked eyes with him. Said nothing. Just nodded. Because somewhere out there behind NDAs and locked studio doors, the silence was cracking. Viewer discretion advised. The following contains reconstructed testimony and dramatized accounts from sources within the case. All characters remain presumed innocent unless proven otherwise. The court resumed in the early afternoon, but it wasn't just the jury that looked different, it was the air. Something had been broken in the last session. Silence was no longer a shield, it had become an open wound. The prosecutor adjusted her glasses, then walked toward 50 Cent. Her voice was steady. Mr. Jackson, in your previous testimony you mentioned there were artists on your list who weren't necessarily victims, but facilitators. Would you care to elaborate? 50 nodded, eyes fixed on the table before him. Yeah, some of them helped. Some stayed close just long enough to benefit trips. Features, favors, placements. They saw it, they laughed it off, and then they took the check. Can you name anyone? A beat passed. Mario Winans, he said quietly. Gasps. 50 didn't flinch. He wasn't a bad dude. He just looked the other way too many times. Studio nights that turned into something else. He'd be playing piano while the door closed behind people that didn't want to be there. And you believe he knew? 50 shrugged. If you've been around Puff long enough, you know. Anyone else? DJ Stevie J, part of the Miami crew. He used to run those after parties, the ones where the lights never came on. I told him once, "Yo, you're playing the soundtrack to something you don't want to see." He laughed, but his eyes didn't. The courtroom was still, but like I said, not everybody was involved. Some were just used, like pawns. "Let's go back to the night in Atlanta," the prosecutor said. 50 exhaled slowly. "Oh yeah, that one." He leaned forward. It was the BET weekend. Puff rented out the top floor of the W Hotel. Invite only, no cameras. That's how he liked it. YK Osiris was there. Yeah, he showed up late, young kid, nervous. Dressed too sharp, like he was trying to earn something. Described the atmosphere, loud, drunk, but controlled. Puff liked control. If someone got too lit, they were removed. If someone started recording, they were gone in seconds. And Osiris. He looked out of place. I remember seeing him posted up by the ice bucket, like he didn't know where to go. Puff walked up, handed him a drink. Whispered something. Did Osiris look comfortable? No. He looked like he was deciding whether to stay or run. That's how most of them looked the first time. Did anything happen? I left before the suite doors closed, but I know what that night did to him. 3 weeks later, he was crying on Instagram Live, saying nobody understood him, that this industry was fake, that he felt alone. The jury looked away, like the truth had suddenly become too bright. The prosecutor flipped to a new sheet. "What about the assistants?" 50 laughed bitterly. "The assistants always know everything. They carry the guilt in silence." He continued. "There was one, Tina, not her real name. She worked for Bad Boy for years. Used to whisper, 'Don't go upstairs,' when nobody was looking. I tried to get her to speak. She said, 'I got a kid now.'" "You're saying fear runs deeper than money," No 50 said. "I'm saying they're the same thing." The gallery didn't move. "What about the incident involving Justin Bieber?" 50's tone changed. "That's the one that still messes with me." "Why?" "Because the kid was young, too young, and Puff had him everywhere. Award shows, parties, hotel rooms, saying, 'He's with me,' always grinning. Was there a specific event you witnessed?" "Yeah, there was a clip online, you might have seen it. Puff saying, 'I got Justin for the next 48 hours. That was real. I was there." "What did you see?" "I saw handlers laughing. I saw cameras off. I saw Justin looking around like he was trapped in a world he didn't understand. Did you try to intervene?" "I wasn't close enough." "And back then, speaking up meant exile, exile." "Yeah, cut deals, cut funding, cut friendships. Puff ran a kingdom, and exile was death to your career." The prosecutor nodded quietly, acknowledging what so many in the room already knew: power protects itself. "Let's talk about Flavor Camp." 50 shifted. "That wasn't a camp. That was a funnel, a funnel." "Yeah, take a bunch of young talent, dress it up like mentorship, isolate them, build the fantasy, then flip it." "Did you attend once?" "Left after 2 hours. Why?" "Because it didn't feel like guidance. It felt like grooming." The jury was stunned. Anyone else ever say the same? I heard it from multiple people. They'd say, "He flew me out for creative development." Then they'd come back, changed, describe the change. They got quiet. The courtroom was silent again. The kind of silence that didn't need permission. "Mr. Jackson, what do you say to those who claim this is all speculation?" "I say I wish it was." He paused. "I say I wish I was wrong, but I'm not, and y'all know it." Diddy still hadn't looked up. The judge called for recess, but nobody moved, because this wasn't just about what 50 had said. It was about who might speak next, and what silence had cost them. Viewer discretion advised. This segment contains dramatized reconstructions based on courtroom testimony and public reporting. Some content may be disturbing. When the session resumed, the room had changed. Less spectacle, more gravity. Jurors looked older, attorneys more alert. Even the press had stopped whispering, because now it wasn't just about names, it was about structure. 50 Cent took the stand again. His voice, once forceful, now cut with fatigue. But he didn't back down. "You said something yesterday," the prosecutor began, "that Puff doesn't throw parties, he throws mazes. Can you expand?" 50 nodded. "It's never about what you're invited to. It's about what you're led into." "Explain." "You get invited to a celebration, a BET after-party, an album launch. But once you're inside, the space changes. People disappear behind curtains. Security blocks certain hallways. Music gets quieter in some rooms. That's when the real party starts." Who was usually invited to these real parties? Young artists, up-and-comers, people trying to impress, people who don't know better yet. And what would Puff do? He'd isolate, take someone aside, say, "Let's talk business upstairs," or, "I got something to show you." The courtroom was still. Did you ever see someone change after one of those nights? "Yeah," 50 said, "plenty. Give us an example." "Roddy Ricch. First time I saw him at one of Puff's events, he was sharp, eager. The next time quieter, edgier, wouldn't make eye contact. Looked like someone who'd seen too much too fast." "Did he say anything to you?" "No. But one of his people pulled me aside. Said Puff flew him out, put him in a suite, had meetings that didn't feel like meetings." "Do you believe something inappropriate happened?" "I believe he didn't fly home the same person." The gallery was silent. "Let's talk about the incident at Coachella." 50 nodded slowly. "That was one of the most blatant." "Describe it." "Puff rented a private compound nearby. Invite only. NDAs thicker than passports. YK Osiris was there. So was Tory Lanez. Night started chill. Poolside drinks. Then Puff disappeared with a group of people, Osiris included. What happened next? Around 2 a.m. Osiris ran out the front, shirt half-buttoned. Looked like he was hyperventilating. Got in a car. Peeled off. Didn't say a word. "Did you follow up?" I tried. "He ghosted everyone for 3 days. When he reappeared, he told his label he was done with the scene." "Was that the last time you saw him?" "Yeah, at least in that space. I heard he's been trying to rebuild, but he stays low." The prosecutor glanced at the judge, then continued, "You also mentioned something about house staff." 50's tone sharpened. "Yeah, housekeepers, security, drivers. They saw more than anyone." "Did you speak to any directly? 2 drivers and a chef. They all said the same thing. After a certain hour, things got weird. Orders changed. Guests weren't allowed to leave. Phones vanished. Clothes went missing. Clothes, yeah. One driver said a guest came down at 5 a.m. looking for his pants. Said they'd been taken for dry cleaning. No one saw them again. Why would someone take a guest's clothes? Control 50 said. You take a man's phone and his clothes, you own his exit. The prosecutor let that settle. You also referenced Puff's private security. Can you describe their role? They weren't bodyguards, 50 replied. They were sentries. Watched entrances. Blocked exits. Made sure no one wandered. Did you ever confront any of them once, at a rooftop event? I tried to leave early. One of them stepped in my path, said Puff wanted to say goodbye. I told him I'd say it tomorrow. He didn't move. I had to call my own security to clear the way. The room tensed. Was that common for certain guests? Yeah. Especially the young ones, the ones still trying to earn their spot. The judge leaned forward. Mr. Jackson, please stay within the bounds of confirmed behavior. 50 nodded. Yes, Your Honor. I'm telling you what I saw. Let's move to the studio incidents. Which one? 2019. The session with Chris Brown. 50's jaw tightened. That one nearly broke me. What happened? Chris showed up early. Puffy was late. When he finally arrived, the energy shifted. Closed the blinds, locked the doors, told the engineer to shut it down. Said this wasn't about music anymore. Did Chris react? He bounced. 15 minutes later he was gone. No goodbye, just out. Did he say anything to you? Just 2 words. Never again. The prosecutor paused. Then, did you add him to your list? No. He asked me not to. Said he'd speak when he was ready. The courtroom held its breath. Mr. Jackson, the prosecutor, said, "What is your goal here?" 50 didn't hesitate. To make sure no one else gets trapped. That's it. I'm not here for clout. I'm here because people trusted me to speak. Do you fear retaliation? Of course, but fear don't silence me. It fuels me. The judge called for adjournment. 50 stepped down. Outside, dozens more had gathered. Reporters, activists, fans. Some were crying, some were quiet, but all were watching. Because this wasn't just about Puff anymore. This was about who'd been silent and why. Day 5, the final day. They brought 50 Cent back for one last session. He looked different. Still composed, but there was something behind his eyes now. Like the weight of what he'd carried had finally shifted. Not gone, but redistributed, shared. The prosecutor stood. Mr. Jackson, we've reviewed names, events, and patterns. But today we'd like to understand something deeper, the system. How did this go on for so long? 50 took a breath. Because Puff wasn't just a man, he said. He was a machine, built on charm, fear, and protection. People didn't see the strings because he made the show look too good. Can you explain? He had layers, handlers, lawyers, executives, party planners. Everyone had a job not just to help him live that life, but to protect it. And when something went wrong, he looked at the jury. They buried it, paid it, silenced it. The courtroom was quiet again. What about NDAs? The prosecutor asked. Standard. You couldn't pour champagne at a Puff event without signing paperwork. Some people signed without reading. Others knew exactly what they were agreeing to silence. Did you ever sign one once? Early. Backed out before the event. Got a call the next day from someone high up telling me not to talk. And did you? He smiled faintly. I'm talking now. Laughter rippled, then died. Let's talk about the aftermath, the prosecutor continued. Of those who left, who vanished. What happened to them? 50's voice was low now. Some broke, some drank, some OD'd. Some disappeared completely. You'd see them at one party glowing. Then a month later, gone. No music, no press, just gone. Do you think it was intentional? I think it was consequence. The prosecutor hesitated. You mentioned earlier that some names on your list were collaborators, people who enabled. Will you name them today? 50 shook his head. Not now, not yet. That part ain't my place. That's their reckoning to face. Then what is your place? He looked out at the courtroom. My place is to say it out loud, to make the silence louder than the music, to let the next kid know this ain't normal, this ain't success. It's a trap wrapped in diamonds. He unfolded the paper. This list, it ain't just names. It's stories, warnings. And not everyone on here is a victim, but every one of them matters. Because if they don't, none of us do. The prosecutor approached the bench. Your Honor, with the court's permission, Mr. Jackson would like to read the remaining names into the record. The judge nodded. 50 stood. He didn't look at his paper. He just began. Bow Wow, Trey Songz, Justin Bieber, Kevin Hart, YK Osiris, Fabulous, Gene Deal, Kid Cudi, Chris Brown, Roddy Ricch, Tory Lanez, and some I won't say not today, but they know, and they're watching. He folded the paper again. That's it. No gasps, no whispers, just silence. And then the judge asked a question no one expected. Mr. Jackson. Why now? He didn't hesitate. Because I got a son, he said, and I don't want him growing up thinking this is the cost of fame. I want him to know you can have power without using it to hurt people. The judge nodded. Thank you. That was it. The end of testimony, but not the end of fallout. Outside, the world had already begun to shift. Streaming services paused contracts. Brand deals were reevaluated. Old footage was pulled from archives. And the internet. It exploded. Clips went viral. Memes stopped. Think pieces dropped by the hour. More names came forward, quietly, cautiously, but they came. Some said I was there too. Others simply posted a black square. And puff. He didn't speak, not once. Not outside that courtroom, not online, because this time silence wasn't power. It was a question, and everyone was waiting for the answer.